The golden cage. The engagement ring on Sophia Bennett's finger caught the afternoon light, sending prisms dancing across the leather interior of the Blackwood family car. 3 months ago, she had been a simple bookshop owner with modest dreams. Now, as the vehicle wound its way through the imposing iron gates of Thornfield Estate, she was to be the wife of Edmund Blackwood, heir to one of the country's oldest fortunes. "Nervous?" Edmund asked, his hand covering hers. His touch was gentle, but somehow perfunctory, like someone checking a valuable possession. "A little," Sophia admitted, watching the manicured gardens unfold before them. The estate was breathtaking, ancient oaks, sculpted hedges and flower beds arranged with mathematical precision. Beautiful, yet somehow sterile. The car stopped before a Georgian mansion of pale stone. Standing on the steps was Veronica Blackwood, Edmund's mother, elegant in a cream silk dress that complemented her silver hair. Unlike the cold reception Sophia had feared, Veronica's arms opened wide as she descended the stairs. "My dear girl," she exclaimed, embracing Sophia with the scent of expensive perfume. "I've been counting the days until you arrived. The house has needed a young woman's touch for so long." Dinner that evening was served in a dining room lined with portraits of stern-faced Blackwood ancestors. Veronica had placed Sophia at her right hand, offering choice morsels from each dish. "You must build your strength," Veronica said with a smile that touched her lips but not her eyes. "There's so much to learn about becoming a Blackwood." Over the following weeks, Sophia found herself wrapped in what felt like a silken cocoon. Veronica was constantly present, guiding her through the house's extensive rooms, explaining family traditions, selecting her wardrobe for various occasions. "This blue complements your complexion so beautifully," she would say, or "No, dear, a Blackwood wife never wears that style." Edmund was frequently absent, attending to family business that was never fully explained. When Sophia inquired, Veronica would pat her hand. "Men's matters, my dear. You'll learn that a happy marriage requires certain boundaries." At night, Sophia would write letters to her younger sister, Meredith, her only living relative. She described the grandeur of her new life, but found herself omitting the growing unease that prickled at the back of her neck whenever Veronica's gaze lingered too long on her. One morning, Sophia couldn't find the stack of outgoing letters she'd left on her writing desk. "Oh, I had them posted for you," Veronica explained when asked. "I was heading into the village anyway, so efficient to handle it all at once." Strange, Sophia thought. She hadn't sealed them yet. That afternoon, while exploring the library, she overheard Veronica speaking with the family solicitor, Mr. Hargrove, in the adjacent study. "The Bennett girls' properties. Are they secured yet?" Veronica's voice had none of its usual warmth. "Nearly complete. Once the marriage is finalized next month, the transfer process can begin. Her sister's portion too, since she's named as guardian." Sophia froze, her hand gripping a leather-bound book. What transfer? What did they mean about Meredith? Footsteps approached the study door. Sophia quickly moved to a reading chair, opening the book just as Veronica emerged. "There you are, my dear," Veronica said, her smile firmly in place. "I've been looking everywhere. The dressmaker is here for your final fitting." Sophia returned the smile, feeling it strain her cheeks. "How thoughtful of you to remember." As Veronica led her away, Sophia caught the gardener watching through the window. Unlike the other servants who averted their eyes in her presence, this man, young, with intelligent eyes, held her gaze for a moment too long. In that brief exchange, Sophia felt something she hadn't since arriving at Thornfield. Seen, whispers in the halls, the Blackwood estate hummed with activity as preparations for the wedding intensified. Sophia found herself swept along in a current of decisions that weren't truly hers to make. Veronica had opinions on everything: the flowers, Lilies are so much more refined than roses, dear. The guest list? The Harringtons simply must be, seated away from the Pembrokes' old tensions. And even the wedding vows, traditional is best, no need for personal sentiments. Edmund remained a pleasant but distant figure, agreeing with his mother on all matters. When Sophia suggested including Meredith as her maid of honor, his response was telling. Mother thinks someone more established would be appropriate. Perhaps my cousin Imogen. But Meredith is my only family, Sophia had protested. Edmund's face softened with practiced sympathy. Which is exactly why you need to embrace your new family fully. Your mother says many things, Sophia interrupted, surprising herself with the edge in her voice. That evening, she tried calling Meredith again, but as with her previous 3 attempts, the call went straight to voicemail. The knot of worry in her stomach tightened. The following morning, Sophia decided to explore the grounds alone, needing space from Veronica's constant presence. The gardens were extensive, and she soon found herself near the rose greenhouse where she spotted the gardener from before. He was pruning white roses, his movements precise and careful. "Those are beautiful," she said, approaching him. He looked up, and Sophia was struck again by the intensity in his eyes, hazel with flecks of gold that seemed to see right through pretenses. "There for your wedding," he replied, his voice surprisingly cultured. "Though I heard the lady of the house preferred lilies." "You heard correctly." Sophia smiled ruefully. "I'm Julian," he said after a moment. "Julian Morris." Sophia Bennett. Soon to be Blackwood, apparently. "Apparently," he echoed, studying her face. Then, glancing over her shoulder, he added quietly, "The white roses have thorns, but they're honest about it. Unlike some things that appear harmless but aren't." Before she could ask what he meant, Veronica's voice cut through the air. "Sophia! There you are. Mr. Hargrove needs your signature on some documents." As Sophia turned to leave, Julian pressed a white rose into her hand. "Be careful of the thorns," he murmured, though his meaning felt much deeper. The documents Veronica presented were complex legal papers that Mr. Hargrove rushed her through signing. When Sophia asked for copies to review, Veronica laughed lightly. "My dear, these are standard pre-nuptial arrangements. Nothing worth fretting over." That night, Sophia woke to the sound of voices in the hallway outside her bedroom. She crept to the door, opening it a crack. "Already signed everything," Veronica was saying. "Once they're married, her sister's guardianship transfers to Edmund. The girl won't suspect until it's done. And if she becomes difficult..." This was Edmund's voice, colder than Sophia had ever heard it. "Dr. Reynolds has been most accommodating. In the past, a nervous breakdown is easily diagnosed in young women of uncertain background." Sophia's blood turned to ice. She closed the door silently, leaning against it as her mind raced. This couldn't be happening. They were planning something involving Meredith, her sweet, trusting sister who had just turned 18, a sister who had mysteriously stopped answering her phone. The next day, Sophia searched her room and found that her phone's call history had been cleared. When she used Edmund's laptop while he was showering, she discovered emails from Meredith that had been intercepted, messages asking why Sophia hadn't been in touch, expressing confusion about legal papers she'd received regarding her care. Walking in the garden later, her mind churning with fear and plans, she nearly collided with Julian. "I've been hoping to find you alone," he said softly, checking to ensure they weren't observed. "There's something you need to know about the Blackwoods, that they're planning to take control of my sister, that they've been intercepting my communication." Sophia's voice trembled with anger. Julian's eyes widened slightly. "You know." "Not everything, but enough to be terrified." He hesitated, then spoke rapidly. "My mother was their housekeeper for 20 years. The previous Mrs. Blackwood, Edmund's first wife, She didn't travel abroad like they claim. After she started questioning certain financial dealings, she had a nervous episode. She never left North Crest Sanitarium. Sophia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "And you think—" "I think you're next in line for the same treatment," Julian said grimly, "after they secure your assets and your sister's guardianship." "Why are you telling me this? Why help me?" Something flickered in Julian's expression. Determination, certainly, but something more personal, too. "Because 20 years ago, my mother tried to warn the first Mrs. Blackwood. No one believed her. She lost her position, her reputation, everything." He pressed a small key into Sophia's palm. "East wing, third door. There's a locked drawer. In the desk. Find the files before tomorrow's rehearsal dinner, and trust no one, especially not the Smiles." As Sophia clutched the key, a voice called from the house. Veronica stood on the terrace, her face a perfect mask of motherly concern. "Sophia, there you are. What on earth are you doing with the gardener?" "Just asking about flower arrangements," Sophia called back, her own face arranging itself into a mask just as carefully crafted. She would need to become a better actress than Veronica if she was to escape the fate being woven around her. The warning note, the key Julian had given Sophia, felt impossibly heavy in her pocket as she made her way through dinner that evening. Veronica dominated the conversation as usual, discussing wedding arrangements with a reverence typically reserved. "For state occasions, the governor has confirmed his attendance," she announced, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. "That makes 3 state officials. The Blackwood name still commands respect in the right circles." Edmund nodded appreciatively, while Sophia pushed food around her plate. Her appetite had vanished since overhearing that chilling conversation. "You're quiet tonight, dear," Veronica observed, her keen eyes missing nothing. "Wedding nerves." "Just tired," Sophia replied, forcing a smile. "So many details to consider." "Which is why you have me." Veronica reached across to pat her hand. "I've handled everything. You need only show up looking beautiful." Later, as the grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight, Sophia slipped from her bedroom. The East Wing was rarely used, housing primarily Blackwood family archives and heirlooms. The thick carpet muffled her footsteps as she navigated the darkened corridors, guided only by moonlight filtering through tall windows. The third door creaked slightly as she pushed it open. Inside was a study, smaller than the main library, but lined with filing cabinets and a massive oak desk. Sophia locked the door behind her and switched on a small desk lamp. The locked drawer yielded easily to Julian's key. Inside were folders neatly labeled by year. She pulled out the most recent one and began reading. What she found made her blood run cold. Financial statements showed how the Blackwoods had been steadily losing money for decades, their investments failing, their properties mortgaged. Edmund's first wife had brought substantial wealth to the marriage, wealth that mysteriously transferred entirely to Blackwood control shortly before her nervous breakdown. Sophia found medical reports signed by Dr. Reynolds, the same doctor Veronica had mentioned, diagnosing the first Mrs. Blackwood with paranoid delusions and erratic behavior, requiring institutionalization. The timing coincided perfectly with her questioning of financial irregularities. Then she found the file labeled Bennett Assets. Inside was a complete accounting of her small bookshop, her modest savings, and, most disturbingly, Meredith's trust fund left by their parents. The combined total was substantial enough to keep the Blackwoods afloat for several more years. A handwritten note in Veronica's elegant script detailed a timeline: marriage, asset transfer, and then medical intervention if resistance occurs. Sophia's hands shook as she photographed each document with her phone. As she was replacing the files, she noticed another folder, unlabeled and thin. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a death certificate for Margaret Morris, dated 18 years ago. Cause of death Suicide. Julian's mother. A noise in the hallway made Sophia freeze. She quickly returned everything to the drawer, locked it, and extinguished the lamp. Footsteps approached, then passed. Sophia waited 5 excruciating minutes before slipping back to her room. She couldn't sleep. Instead, she wrote everything down, creating duplicate records of what she'd discovered. One copy she sealed in an envelope addressed to a lawyer friend from before her engagement. The other she kept hidden in the lining of her suitcase. At breakfast, Veronica announced a change of plans. The rehearsal dinner has been moved up to tonight instead of tomorrow. Edmund's father is arriving earlier than expected. That's sudden, Sophia said carefully. Family tradition, Veronica explained smoothly. The patriarch always inspects the bride before the final arrangements. Inspects, like cattle at auction. Sophia felt ill. In the garden that afternoon, she managed to find Julian alone again. He was trimming hedges, his face grim in concentration. "I found the files," she whispered, "and the death certificate for Margaret Morris." Julian's shears stilled. "My mother," he confirmed quietly. "They said she stole family heirlooms." "She didn't. She was going to expose them." "I'm so sorry," Sophia said. "Julian, they've moved up the rehearsal dinner to tonight. And they've done something to my sister. She's not answering any calls or emails. They work fast when threatened." He said, "We need to move faster. I've made inquiries about your sister. She's been taken to their country estate under the pretense of wedding preparations. They're isolating you both." Sophia fought rising panic. "What do we do?" "I have a friend who works at Northcrest Sanitarium, where they sent Edmund's first wife. She confirmed that a room is being prepared. For you, Sophia, after the wedding." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "When?" "3 days from now," Julian said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Once they have your signature on the final documents." "I need to get to Meredith, to warn her." Julian nodded. "My shift ends at 7. Meet me by the old boathouse after the rehearsal dinner. I can get you to the country estate." He hesitated, then added, "This is dangerous. Veronica won't let go easily." "Why are you risking so much to help me?" Sophia asked. Something softened in Julian's expression. "Because 18 years ago I watched my mother destroyed by these people. Because you remind me of her, perceptive, kind, undeserving of their cruelty." He paused. "And because no one should be caged for another's greed." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. Sophia felt a warmth spread through her chest, a startling contrast to the chill that accompanied Edmund's touches. "Sophia," Edmund's voice carried across the garden. "Mother's looking for you. The dress fitting, remember?" "Coming," she called back, then whispered to Julian. "Tonight. The boathouse." As she walked away, Sophia felt Julian's eyes on her back. For the first time since arriving at Thornfield Estate, she didn't feel alone. Tonight would change everything, if she could maintain the facade for a few more hours. The gilded cage was opening, but the most dangerous moment would be the escape. Evidence. And escape. The rehearsal dinner transformed the Blackwood dining room into a showcase of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the table, where 20 guests, all Blackwood connections, sipped vintage champagne and discussed bloodlines and business ventures as if they were one and the same. Sophia sat beside Edmund, wearing a midnight blue dress Veronica had selected. She'd styled her hair differently than Veronica had instructed, a small act of defiance that had earned her a tight smile and whispered correction. "Remember, dear," Veronica had murmured earlier, "a Blackwood woman reflects her family's standing in every detail." "As if I were a walking advertisement," Sophia thought, maintaining her pleasant expression while mentally counting the minutes until she could leave. Theodore Blackwood, Edmund's father, had indeed arrived early. He was a towering figure with cold eyes that assessed Sophia with unconcealed calculation. During the appetizer course, he'd questioned her about her parents' deaths, her education, her modest business, all while making notes in a small leather book. Adequate background, considering, he'd finally pronounced to Veronica, as if Sophia weren't present. The sisters' trust fund makes up for the lineage deficiencies. Now, as dessert was served, Veronica tapped her glass for attention. "Tomorrow, our Edmund will join his life with this lovely girl," she announced, her smile benevolent. "The Blackwood name continues its distinguished legacy, and Sophia gains the family she's been so tragically without." Applause rippled around the table. Edmund squeezed Sophia's hand, a gesture that once made her heart flutter, but now felt like a warning. "A toast," Theodore Blackwood raised his glass, "to the preservation of legacy through strategic alliance." Not exactly a romantic sentiment, Sophia thought, as she sipped her champagne. Across the room, she caught the eye of a server, Julian, who had switched from gardening duties to help with the dinner. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. "If you'll—" "Excuse me," Sophia said as the dessert plates were cleared. "I need a moment of fresh air." "Shall I accompany you, darling?" Edmund offered, already half rising. "No need," Sophia smiled, touching his shoulder. "Just wedding jitters. I won't be long." Veronica's eyes followed her as she left the room. Once, in the hallway, Sophia grabbed her prepared bag from behind a decorative chest where she'd hidden it earlier. She slipped out through the conservatory, heart pounding as she made her way across the moonlit grounds toward the boathouse. Julian was already waiting, his server's uniform exchanged for dark clothing. "We don't have much time," he said, helping her into a small motorboat. "They'll notice your absence soon." The boat cut silently across the lake that separated the main estate from the dense woods beyond. Julian navigated with the confidence of someone who had made this journey many times. "How did you become a gardener for the family that destroyed yours?" Sophia asked as they reached the far shore. Julian secured the boat before answering. "I needed proof of what they did to my mother. Working here was the only way to access it." His jaw tightened. "I've been gathering evidence for 2 years. Your case isn't the first, but I intend it to be the last." They hiked through the woods to where Julian had parked an old truck on a service road. As they drove toward the country estate, Sophia explained her own evidence, the photos she'd taken, the copies she'd mailed. "Then what's your plan?" "My mother wasn't the only staff member to witness their methods. I've found others, former maids, groundskeepers, even one of Dr. Reynolds's nurses."